Broads Media.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on in to Sports Talk with Broads. Nick Nurse spoke to the media, and we actually had an opportunity to interview Nick Nurse on the best show ever right after his press conference. So what I'm going to do at the tail end of this, I will play for you that 10-minute interview to get a little bit more knowledge on who Nick Nurse is, the person, what type of guy are we getting, what are his hobbies outside of just basketball, then of course some basketball stuff too. And when you listen to him speak, it's pretty obvious he's all business. He sounds like a pro. He sounds like someone who's already thought about what he wants to do with certain players. When he was asked about Tyrese Maxey, I mean, what he already visualized, I don't know what invisualized is, but visualized is a dude who could be put in the pick and roll more and then forced to have to facilitate, forced to have to create. And we need him to be a better ball handler. He's got great speed. He's fantastic with his legs. He can beat you off the bounce. He's got an excellent ability to drive. And even Nick Nurse alluded to this, that there's different layers to it, whether it's a floater, whether it's going all the way to the cup, or his willingness to shoot from behind the arc. But we need him to do more with the rock in his hands. That's with and without James Harden. And I think a great example on how he utilizes the media is how he responded to the question about James Harden. The ball's in his court. He has a decision to make. Now, apparently, both parties have spoken. But it's about winning. Do you want to win? And he has a decision to make. There's been a lot of talk about how he utilizes the media for a certain message for players. He mentioned communication. A big part of that, too, is communicating with these guys. But we know there's something to be said about what he did in Toronto, whether it's Gary Trent Jr., whether it's Pascal Siakam. I don't have an issue with it. You're playing with a line, but Nick Nurse is highly regarded as one of the better coaches in the league. He's done this for a long period of time, utilizing that method. And for every story that you hear that's negative, there's someone like Fred VanVleet who basically goes, I want to play for this guy. It's deeper than just basketball. There's a relationship there and a bond that's way more than just the sport. So he's doing something right with the way he goes about his business and the way that he decides to call out guys or to try and get more out of certain guys. Who am I to judge? We were stoked when we thought of the possibility of him being on the sidelines. One word he used to describe his defense, though, that I know a lot of fans are going to love, and quite frankly, when he said it, my ears perked up, called it nasty. We're going to have to get nasty. Woo-hoo! Oh, man. The thing is, your backcourt is still probably going to be small. And I don't know what you can do on the defensive end with some of just the liabilities from size. But that's when Nick Nurse gets creative. That's when he gets unique, and he'll throw a bunch of crap out there that you would never even think of in a million years on the floor. You might see, not really, I'm just being a sarcastic son of a bitch, but you might see Paul Reed, Montrezl Harrell, Dwayne Dedmon, PJ Tucker, Tyrese Maxey. You said pick and roll, right, Coach? Pick your poison. Which guy you got to pick and roll with to distribute the basketball, Maxey? You need to get better at passing. You got to get better at creating. Here's 4 guys. Find a way to pick and roll and find somebody. Even though all the other guys stink in so many different areas. There's no spacing on the floor. But I'm just saying, you're going to see out-of-the-box stuff. You'll never see that. You'll never see that. You'll never see that, I think. Oh, man. Unreal. We were having some fun, though, because he starts off this presser going, I don't vibrate on the frequency of the past. Did he think about that off the top of his head? Or was that something that he planned out and said, okay, I'm going to find a time to use this because it seems too smooth. Who speaks like that? But maybe that's the difference in his mind. Maybe that's what makes Nick Nurse Nick Nurse. If he does it again in 3, 4, 5 pressers, and there's more statements and more sentences that makes me go, in what world? Nobody who's a normal human uses that type of words. Are you a wordsmith? An example I use is, if you're a home run hitter, you hit more than one home run. If you luck into one that's 420 feet, and then you don't hit another bomb for another 2 months, you're not a home run hitter. So is he a wordsmith? Who uses that sentence? I don't vibrate on the frequency of the past. It cracks me up, but it also sells me the intrigue on what Nick Nurse is or who Nick Nurse is. I'm excited for him, though. I am. I asked him about the first thing you do when you walk into a new locker room. The word culture is always smacked around, but what do? We got to set a vision. We got to look at what we have to do to accomplish that vision. Set goals. And he's fully aware of all the noise surrounding the second round. He's like, we got to attack it. We got to be aware of it. We got to go after it. I have a minor fear with that. Not that he's wrong, but there's such a big emphasis on second round, getting out of the second round. I don't want that to be the goal. The goal is to win a championship. And Daryl Morey stated that when the season ended because he was pushed a bunch of times about not getting out of the second round. Why are you here? What were you brought in to do if you are falling in the same exact spot as Brett Brown did before you got here? What's the purpose? And he starts off by talking about that second round. But he goes, hold on a second. It's about the championship. I want to win a title. Now, Nick Nurse, I think, is savvy enough to find a way to do both. If there's a vision and there's a set of goals, if one of the goals is set to get out of the second round with there being more goals after, then I think that's okay. But we know, and this fan base knows, that we head into next year thinking that nothing matters except for a possible Eastern Conference Finals. We just got to make sure that the hunger runs deeper than that. And if there's one man to do that and one man to get everybody to have that mindset, I think it's Nick Nurse. He's a very unique guy. Very interesting. Different cat, but I like it. And you get a sense of, he ain't messing around. This is no joke. His life is basketball. He breathes basketball. He's been thinking about this Sixers team and diving deep into film since he got the job. He already has plans on what he wants to do with Embiid, get him incorporated even more, get him adding to his game even more. And I think that there is another jump to take. Because all I know is when I thought he hit his ceiling, there was more to it. And I specifically used that word ceiling when I asked the coach about Tyrese Maxey. What do you think he could be? What do you think his ceiling is? He goes, I don't put ceilings on players. Love that. You're right. Because if there was a ceiling on guys, then I thought Joel Embiid capped out 2 years ago. There's always stuff that you can do to improve. You're damn right. You are damn right. So we put out a Twitter poll on the best show ever. And the question was, does Nick Nurse give you faith? Are you getting more faith from the new head coach? And this is where it baffles me. Because for years now, it's been about what? Get Doc out of here, fire Doc Rivers stinks. Well, 43% of the fans said yes. He does give me faith. 57% no. Well, hold on a second. If Doc was the problem, and Doc sucked at his job, don't you think more would have faith in Nick Nurse? It just doesn't add up to me. Now, maybe there was a realization that it goes more on the guys out there on the court than the head coach when it was all said and done, because James Harden failed you, and Joel Embiid failed you, and DeAnthony Melton failed you, and Tobias Harris with 2 points in a major game at home failed you. Maybe it finally sunk in, and this is the crew, the Sixers fan base crew, recognizing that, well, maybe I was harsh on Doc. He wasn't perfect, and he did have a series lead with the chance to close it out at home, and they struggled to get the ball to their best player. So his fingerprints are on this, and he is a part of the issue, but it stems more from Embiid. It stems more from your go-to dogs. And this poll just reflects that. Maybe that's the case. And I could acknowledge and accept people saying that, you know what, I got it wrong over the years. I was way too intense on Doc. After the 12-12 start, he was ridiculous. This entire team was ridiculous. They were one of the best teams in all of basketball. Their two-man game was gross. It couldn't be stopped. And you're losing a ton in James Harden. You're losing the league-leading assist man. That's monstrous. So I don't know what they're going to run. And I don't know who's going to be the primary dog. But you're going to take a step back without him. Things have quieted down on the James Harden front. Maybe that's for a reason. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. After the conversation with Nick Nurse and the selling point of we want to win a championship, maybe there's a reason why it's tamed down a tad. Less Woj bombs on Houston this, Houston that. And he's thinking about it. He's processing it. I don't know. I would do it if the price is right, believe it or not. I would do it, and I would feel okay if it was a reasonable amount of money and not for a long time. You also know he wants a bag, though. And he's getting up there. There's not many more years. So there's not many more chances to get a lot of cash. Now's the time. It's going to be fascinating. It sure is. All right, we got anytime hotline stuff, so let's do it.
I absolutely loved the Nick Nurse press conference today. I mean, just from him saying that how he adjusted his defense based on how the roster is in Toronto. I mean, just adjusting, the willingness to adjust is huge to me. I mean, Doc Rivers didn't do that very well. Brett Brown didn't do that very well. Just having a head coach who is willing to adjust is wonderful to me. He also said he wants to unlock Embiid's passing game more, which I am in love with. If he can be dishing out assists like Jokic, that'll make everyone around him better.
Well, he's not Jokic, and Jokic plays a different game, a different style. I don't want Embiid to be something that he's not. You can always make additions, and you can always get better. If you remember a few years back, him trying to pass out of the double team made us all throw up. It was nonstop turnovers consistently, and weirdly enough, Nick Nurse was a big reason why. He would throw a ton of different looks his way and get super odd with the way that he would swarm and suffocate Embiid's space, which caused him to get uncomfortable and look for a teammate, can't get it to him, the ball goes out of bounds or it's a loose ball, and now they're getting out in transition and scoring easy points. So, if there's been someone who's been able to do it very efficiently, it's been the guy who's on your team now, and Nick Nurse. So that's why I think it's awesome that he's been in the trenches studying Embiid for so long. It can help out try and clean up some of the deficiencies. But I can't ask him to be Jokic. I don't want to ask him to be Jokic. I want him to be Joel Embiid. But yes, I think Nick Nurse can help him improve. With the whole Brett Brown thing, Brett Brown, I know people don't want to hear this. That 7-game series with Nick Nurse, he actually did make very solid adjustments all the way throughout that series. At some point, you got to recognize you're playing with a guy who doesn't shoot a basketball, and you can't just bench your Ben Simmons at that point. Your point guard at that point, you just can't do it. You can't just bench him for a whole entire game. You had to utilize him. And then you went to Jimmy Butler in the fourth quarter because of how bad Ben was. And, your offense just absolutely is a different monster at that point because all year long you play with one point guard and then you have to switch it in the most important, crucial time of the season. It makes no sense. It doesn't add up, but that's what you had to do because of the deficiencies of what was on your roster. And then when you went double big, there was no real alternative to it. But toe-to-toe throughout 7 games, what Brett Brown countered Nick Nurse with, he was willing to adjust. Doc isn't as willing to adjust, to be fair. I do think he gets more stuck in the mud and stuck in his ways. But I think that those were unnecessary shots, as if NBA coaches aren't looking to adjust in a 7-game series. They are. Nick is just more willing to go outside of the box. That I'm okay with saying. That I agree with you with. He'll think of things and try things that other coaches would probably never have in their mind. Some may work, some might not work. Some might fail miserably. But he's willing to go down swinging. Go down trying to crush it, which maybe that helps you sleep more at night. And that's okay. I'm not saying it shouldn't. All right, how about this text message from the Anytime Hotline? What is this team without James Harden but with Nick Nurse? They're a playoff team. Where's Tobias in this case? You got Maxey and Embiid. What are they? They're a playoff team. I don't think their ceiling, I know Nick Nurse doesn't like the word ceiling, but I don't think their ceiling is as high as last year's was. Does it open up another road, though, for a longer window? Like, not just next year, but what does this open up if you do walk away from Harden or if Harden walks away from you? What do you get down the road? Sure, that's more intriguing, but you hired Nick Nurse to win now. Embiid is in the time now. So is that basically not a punt, but not a full all-in regular season? Oof. I don't like it. But that's my answer. They're not as good as last year, and they're a playoff team. If you want to try and do the whole underdog thing, maybe that's what's best. Maybe the pressure of needing to win now is what's hurting them. They can't get over that mental hurdle. Now, that would be bad, and tell me that your locker room isn't as, quote, mentally tough as we need it to be, as Tobias Harris said. But we kind of know that, right? Maybe they need less pressure. Hey, people think it's a punt year. Use that to your advantage. Have Nick Nurse try and inspire you that way. I don't like that. I prefer knowing you're the best, being the best, dominating, and that's normally how the teams who go far do it. You think anyone in the Denver locker room is worried about anything else other than we know we're the greatest? No. We're supposed to be here. So I don't even know, as we walked through that hypothetical, if I even loved it by the end. I don't know. All right. We'll shift gears now and go to the interview we had with Nick Nurse yesterday afternoon. I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you so much for kicking it with me.
On the line with us right now is the brand new head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, Mr. Nick Nurse. How are you today, Nick? Welcome to Philadelphia.
I'm doing good. Thank you. Excited to be here. Thanks.
No, that's very good to hear. So question number one I have for you is, there were a lot of rumors out there. I'm not going to ask you to substantiate any of the rumors, but it seemed like you had a number of suitors, if we believe those rumors, and you chose Philadelphia. What was it about this city, about this franchise, about any particular player that made this more attractive than some of the other options you appear to have had?
Yeah, I think 3 things that you're evaluating when you are lucky enough to have maybe have a choice is that the roster, which I certainly know from competing against. I really like it. The second thing is the front office. I think Elton and Daryl. I've known Daryl for a long time. I actually worked for him before, and his track record of putting together a roster and doing deals and those kind of things kind of speaks for itself. And then ownership is the third one, and you got great owners here.
What's the first thing you do when you step into a new locker room? And I know the word culture is thrown around a lot in sports, but how do you kind of get what you want the message to be across in the early stages?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing you got to do is get a vision for the season, right? And that, it sounds like you say, "Oh, the vision's to win the championship," which it is. But there's a lot of things in that vision, how we're going to play and how we're going to do accountability measures, how we're going to, system of play, how philosophies, how we're going to work in between. There's all kinds of things that go into that. That's more like the plan that follows that vision. Right, so here's the vision, and here's the plan on how we're going to do it. But that's the first thing you got to lay out for sure.
You made a comment in the presser today that this team could be playing tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they in your eyes?
Well, they're not, because a lot of other teams that could be playing tonight aren't either. Right? It's like a lot of things factor into it. Sometimes it's just the way the ball bounces. I mean, I'm sitting here in Philly today because of a ball bounce. That's for sure. Sometimes it's health. Sometimes it's just a really good team, takes you out, right? So there's a lot to be able to get through that 2-month grind. And this year, kudos to Miami. They're the ones that got through it. But there's several other teams, I think, at least a handful of them in the East that probably were expecting to be playing tonight.
We're speaking with new Sixers head coach Nick Nurse. Nick, I got to ask you, Joel Embiid. A lot of people in this city are disappointed in Joel Embiid about his playoff performance, and they're thinking the most important part of your job year one will be to get even more from the league MVP. You've been around Joel Embiid. You talked about it in your press conference earlier. Do you believe that you can unlock even more from Joel Embiid?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I think each year a player needs to, strive to get better. I think that getting more out of him or any of our other guys means winning a championship. I mean, the numbers or whatever may not be the same, but at that point it doesn't really matter once you get to the playoffs. So, yeah, I think getting more out of a little bit more, right, out of him and a number of guys is going to be important.
I loved your answer on Tyrese Maxey earlier when you got asked in the presser. And I'm just curious, what do you see his ceiling? What do you see him being in this league once you get your opportunity to mold him?
Yeah, I don't ever really see ceilings, right? I think he has a super bright future, and he's got a combination of a bunch of things that make it exciting. First of all, he loves the game, his work ethic. He's got a tremendous amount of God-given ability, and he's getting better fast, right? And if he can continue to just stay with things, and we talk about some of the things that may be more specific or team-specific or both ends of the floor, all those kind of things. I just think he's just got a super, super bright future.
Yeah, the Sixers defense hasn't been overly aggressive. How aggressive are you going to make this defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think I need to gauge that a little bit. I would say our 18-19 team plays a lot different defense than our team did the last couple of years. I think each team's identity is different depending on what the roster looks like, or even depending on the season, right? So I like to be aggressive and put pressure and take things away and all those kind of things. Our coaching staff, will do a good job of designing schemes and all that. But I think it's a little bit too early and kind of TBD on that. But all it needs to do is be is what fits them. What fits this team is what our coaching staff needs to roll out there. And then, hopefully at times when we really need it, that's really nasty. You need to be able to certain points of certain games or playoff series that defense needs to be tough. I mean, defense still wins.
Absolutely. Now, Nick, We want to get to know you as a guy a little bit. This city is big on personalities. We like big personalities almost as much as winning, I should say. What kind of person are we getting? Because we've seen you on the other side going to the wall for your players, working the refs. You seem to be an emotional guy. What kind of human being is the city of Philadelphia getting in Nick Nurse?
Well, I think first of all, I'm the youngest of 9. And it was kind of, that environment is very good for becoming a basketball coach. You know, you wake up in the morning and you're fighting for a bowl and a spoon and some milk and some cereal, and it kind of goes on that way all day long. And that's kind of like what it feels like when the ball goes up for me. I just kind of instinctively kick in to start fighting to win. And, you know, and I just would say that when people leave the games, I hope they're saying, man, those guys really played hard and did everything they possibly could to try to win that game tonight. And I think that's the main focus of my job, is to max out the effort and max out what the team's capabilities are.
I want to follow that up by asking you, outside of basketball, what does Nick Nurse like to do? What are some of your hobbies? What are some things that you really love?
Yeah, I mean, I got three boys, and that's a big factor for what I do. A lot of family time and a lot of stuff with those guys. And just personally, I mean, I really like music. I like, you know, playing and listening and seeing it live and all those kind of things. That would probably be where I spend most of my time. It seems to be a good balance between watching a ton of film and playing some music when I'm not like, you know, knee deep in a game prep. But yeah, and that's probably it, you know.
What have you heard about the Philadelphia fans and the Philadelphia media?
Well, I've experienced it. You know, first of all, playing here all the time, the fans and the energy. I actually, you know, we like it. It's the energy in that arena, coming from the fans and stuff is it's unique and it's special. I really like that, and hopefully we can use that as a positive more often than not. And I don't know. I guess some people say the media's tough here, but we'll see.
Nick, just to wrap up, I know you were beloved after you won that championship up in Toronto, and I can just tell you this. If you win a championship here with the Sixers, I promise you will be more beloved in this city than any human being and any sports human being on this planet. I'm not saying it's always going to be nice and pretty and everybody's going to be polite to you, but if you close the deal, Nick Nurse, we will all be wearing nurses' outfits. We'll be wearing the monogram hats that you do and the sweaters. I'm telling you that if you ever get discouraged in this city, and it may happen, if you get to the promised land, I promise you will be more beloved than anybody ever. We're starving for a championship. We love the sport so much. And if you're the missing piece, if you're the guy that gets that much more from Embiid or Maxey, or if Harden returns, or however it flows out, I promise you will feel love like you've never felt in your professional life. I can promise you that.
Okay, I like the sound of that. So that's what we're here to do, man. That's a big reason. That's a big reason we get out of bed every day, is to figure out how to win it all. And it certainly would be special doing it here for sure.
Best of luck to you. We're obviously all going to be rooting for you. Got a lot of work to do between now and draft day and free agency and everything else. But really appreciate the time, and we hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, guys.